Because I know if I hadn't have changed in the way I changed, I'd either be dead or in jail right now, right? Like as I mentioned to you before, like I have friends that are both. And I was right there with them. So like I would have definitely been in that place had that not happened. So how can I see that as a bad thing now at this point? It was the thing that actually needed to happen. It was the perfect. And then since then, other things go down. We have unexpected things occur. And now I have a skill set to be able to relate to those as opportunities for growth, like really, truly. Not pretty it up in my mind, not like try to feel like on some level, like try to convince myself on some level, but to actually genuinely feel like, oh, great, man, that's awesome that went down. That's a learning opportunity. Like I would have never learned that. That was a $3,000 mistake I would have called in the past, but man, that was a $3,000 lesson. That was a $3,000 training. That's going to make me $30,000. That's going to make me more in the future and actually have that as an experience rather than just like trying to convince myself.
Welcome to the Impact Effect Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Morris, and ooh-wee, it's going to be an amazing conversation. We've got Ben Dulaney in the house. He is a certified trainer for inner matrix systems, and we're going to dive deep today. So please help me welcome Ben to the Impact Effect Podcast.
All right. Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
I'm fired up, man. We had a great cup of coffee the other day. Got deep. I'm ready to roll, baby. I'm ready to roll. All right. True Impact Effect Podcast fashion. I ask every single guest the same question to kick it off. What is the most impactful moment in your life that changed everything for the future?
Yeah, I love this question. And so it goes back to a moment of profound grief. And it was a really like self-reflective kind of impact moment. And so it started off with a bad breakup, of course, right? That's every good story begins with a bad breakup, right? So anyway, there was this moment where the woman that I thought I was going to get married to let me know that she wasn't coming back. And of course I found out, she left for another guy. So it was like this really sort of gut punch. And I went into a grieving process. Now, I was stuck where I was at. I couldn't leave. I couldn't cope in the way that I had been coping in the past. And so I was really just sort of stuck with that grief. And at first it was just for her, but it expanded over a couple of days. I had lost my dad to a massive heart attack a few years before, never really grieved it. That started coming up. I had lost a successful marketing company in the financial crash. Never really grieved that. That started coming up. And so by the third day of this process, there was a moment, and it was sort of like this come to Jesus moment. There's this moment of clarity where I realized I was the common denominator. And that moment of clarity sent me on a healing journey that's actually provided enough energy to even get me to where I am today. I set out on a way to figure out how to change myself and how to not have that be my future. And that's what led to me today. So that was the moment.
Dude, defining moment. The common denominator was yourself. Woo! When you came to that realization, you said it was a gut punch. Bring me back there. Like, what did it feel like? Where were you? How'd you get to the other side, dude?
Yeah. It was almost like an accident. It was almost like divine intervention, accident, whatever you want to call it. I was actually selling fireworks in a firework tent, and you can't leave that firework tent. Like you're responsible for the product. There's no door. You can't lock it. So I was stuck in that place. I had put her on a plane to California and got that phone call like, hey, I'm not coming back. I'm sending for my things. Like that gut punch, like at first, again, just was about her, was about the loss of that relationship.
Hold on. So she was going to California. You thought everything was okay. Mm-hmm. And she called you and said, I'm never coming back.
Yeah, we had plans. Like my birthday was the next week. Like we had tickets and plans and all that kind of stuff. So and she's like, I always wanted to be a California surfer girl. This is like my calling. I'm not coming back.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Gut punch. Yes. Okay. Yeah. All right. Keep going.
That's
Sorry. I just had to go back there because I'm like, whoa. That's not just like, hey, I'm moving out in a week. That's
Right.
like,
Yep.
peace.
Peace. I'm out.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like that Dear John letter, right? Dear Ben. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it was awesome. Like, it wasn't awesome at the time. Like, that was definitely this intense grief. And like I said, at first it was for her, but then it started going to these other places of loss that I had just done my best over the years to, do what we do, which is just stuff it, keep going, make money, pay the bills, like do whatever we need to do to kind of like keep going, but never really dealt with it. So when that came out, when, went to the dad, went to the business I had lost, by the third day, it was literally just grief for grief's sake. It was just that intense experience of grief for grief's sake. And that is how I accidentally got to that moment of I'm the common denominator. My mind went to all of these different experiences of me in previous relationships. That was not the first failed relationship, right? Like I was great at getting into a relationship, terrible at keeping them or getting to that like next level. And so I did the same thing with businesses that I was doing with women. And so I saw that myself as that common denominator. And that's where we have to get to really become aware of what we're doing to ourselves, right? What as we call the ghosted machine is like creating in your life. And if you don't ever see that, like it takes some effort to see that. If you don't ever see it, I'd be in a worse place today than I was then, because I would have done what I was doing 5 more times in the last, few years. So
Kept going and not even realizing the negative impact, not only on others in some scenarios or situations, but the negative impact to your soul internally.
Yeah.
Because you're just deflecting or you're moving or you're running or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Do you think that most people ever get to that defining moment in life? Or do you think a lot of people are drifting and just continuing to pile on and pile on and pile on?
I think people get to it occasionally. I think less now because there's so much money involved in businesses that are designed to distract us from actually getting to that moment. I was stuck. Like I couldn't leave. I had to sit with that grief. And this was pre all the apps and scrolling. Like if I went through that today, I don't know that I'd have the same experience. I think I might have gone to the phone and scrolled and, spent time distracting myself there. So I think it's a fortunate thing we didn't have those yet. And I was just really stuck with myself.
Kind of fill in the gap.
Yeah.
With other things that may not serve you in the moment.
Temporary relief.
Temporary relief. Temporary relief. Wow, that hits for me. I haven't really thought of it in that way. When you don't sit in that moment, that stuckness, that stillness, do you actually reflect on things? Or do you just move to the next thing to fill the gap? It's very interesting. As you got my brain running, I'm like, I've done it. I moved to the next thing. I've had ego. I've been in situations where I was just like, it's your fault. See you never, kid. See you never. Yep. And running from the mirror moment where I look myself in the eye and say, nah, dude, own that shit. That is all your fault. That is your behaviors, your actions. And I think sometimes, not in your situation, obviously letting that grief come in different ways, but I've caused a lot of it myself and I've never wanted to own it. But it's funny, if I caused those negative emotions to someone else, there is a lot of ways in my past that I've owned it, but I've never owned causing those negative emotions to myself. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting when you think about it.
Yeah.
When did you start to have gratitude towards this impactful moment in your life? Was that months after, years after? Like, when did you really start to reflect and say, this was a defining moment for the better of my future?
So for me, it was, again, it sent me on that journey to figure out a way to change myself. And fortunately, I ran into this company and engaged in their training and started to discover like what had happened and why it was happening, but not only that, how to change it and shift it. I don't know that I would have gotten to that moment of gratification or gratitude. I trained it, and as training it and developing the ability to be more grateful, I was able to see that as that defining moment and was able to redefine it, redefine it for myself as the best day of my life instead of the worst day of my life, right? This amazing thing that happened that really sent me in a direction that I needed to go. This thing that actually saved my life. Because I know if I hadn't have changed in the way I changed, I'd either be dead or in jail right now, right? Like as I mentioned to you before, like I have friends that are both. And I was right there with them. So like I would have definitely been in that place had that not happened. So how can I see that as a bad thing now at this point? It was the thing that actually needed to happen. It was the perfect. And then since then, other things go down. We have unexpected things occur. And now I have a skill set to be able to relate to those as opportunities for growth, like really, truly. Not pretty it up in my mind, not like try to feel like on some level, like try to convince myself on some level, but to actually genuinely feel like, oh, great, man, that's awesome that went down. That's a learning opportunity. Like I would have never learned that. That was a $3,000 mistake I would have called in the past, but man, that was a $3,000 lesson. That was a $3,000 training. That's going to make me $30,000. That's going to make me more in the future and actually have that as an experience rather than just like trying to convince myself.
I have two questions. One is, how did you train yourself to have the gratitude? Was there anything that comes to mind, any process, any repetition of certain things you did? Or was it really just sitting in that stillness and really getting to that point of depth?
Well, the sitting in the stillness is part of it. I think you've mentioned before that you kind of look in the mirror and like have those conversations or take that moment for yourself. To me, it's sort of like working out in the similar vein. Like we don't work out all day long to build strength. Like you don't go to the gym 24/7 in order to build strength. So you don't have to like work on yourself 24/7. We can just kind of live life and go through the day and maybe let some things slide during the day. But it is important to take that reflection time to where you get better at seeing yourself. You get better at seeing that underlying subconscious, unconscious that's operating, because without seeing it, again, like we have no idea. As we were speaking earlier, it's like we have no idea why these things are happening, and we call it fate. We call it circumstance. We call it other people's fault.
And the subconscious mind controls a large fraction of those things that are occurring in our life, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the percentage, but I don't know the percentage.
Yeah, there's all kinds of different numbers, right? Like I've seen, we have 60,000 thoughts a day, and we're only aware of 3 or 4% of them. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but essentially it's like the vast majority of our automatic behavior throughout the day, our automatic way of thinking, feeling, and acting is unconscious. Like we don't want to consciously make every choice, decision, and action all day long. That sounds tiring. It sounds draining. We just do things throughout the day, and those reflexes, so to speak, that's what is really adding up over time. We can consciously be on our best behavior, right? Like we can suck it up and be on the interview, right? And like, oh, I'm going to behave now for a few moments to get hired. But then, our true nature comes out in the day-to-day work. And so that's what creates the impact.
It's funny you bring up the 60,000 thoughts a day. A little bit of a full circle moment here. The first speech I ever did on stage to 150 people was called Radiate Positivity in a Negative World, and I talked about that statistic because the statistic that I read was we have on average 60,000 thoughts a day, and 48,000 of that 60,000 is negative.
Yeah.
And then I just think about, and that's not everybody, that's on an average populace survey, but I think about how many people are battling with that level of negativity and never actually getting to the other side of gratitude. It's something that, as I think about it, I'm like getting sad thinking about it, because it's without understanding your mind or diving into the deeps of how you're operating or looking in the mirror, how do you ever come to the realization that you're doing this to yourself? I think that's a very interesting conversation to have, you know?
Yeah.
Let's go back to the work you're doing today, because when we had coffee, you were telling me about your life and some of the things you do for clients. What's one of the most impactful moments that you've served a client, and what was the outcome of you working with them, and how did you make them better off in the world after that?
That's such a good question, because I definitely take time to take note of those things, because there's those moments where I maybe don't feel like I'm the best, and it's like I got to remind myself, oh yeah, that's right, I did this for this person. Obviously they do it for themselves. Obviously they're the ones that have to do the exercises. I'm just the trainer, right? I just show them the exercises to do. I just make sure they're doing it properly, but like they're the ones that actually have to do it. And so a couple
Wait, you mean you can't just give them a pill and it just miraculously occurs?
No. I wish my trainer at the gym could tell me how to do a burpee, and now all of a sudden I'd be amazing at burpees, but unfortunately it doesn't work like that. But yeah, a couple of the examples. One, I've worked with this one client for years, and I've worked with them for years because it keeps working, and they've up-leveled their life year after year after year. And so, they were in a situation where they were female, no degree, working with a kind of a toxic work environment, narcissistic boss, that whole sort of situation. And she wanted to make more money, but like, I don't have a degree, my boss doesn't support me, I'm not going to be able to make more money. I'm going to have to find another job. I'm going to have to quit. That's where she was when we started working together. And we started working, training, and things started changing in her nervous system, in that underlying, sort of natural way of being. And, you have no way to kind of predict this stuff. You just decide what you want to go for, start moving towards it, and then things align in the way that they align. So she had a company come and buy their company. And so in that merger process, through the interviewing and all of that, whatever it was the interviewer saw in her, put her in a position managing a team, not even involved with the other boss anymore, not even in the same environment, making more money than her goal was. And so things like that, like how could you predict that? You can't do a business plan for that. Oh, I'm going to do this, and then someone's going to come buy my company, that I work for, and I'm going to get a better job. No, like it just, because she had trained that nervous system component, the way she was speaking, the signals her brain was sending to the other person sitting across from her, like whatever it was, they picked up on and thought she was the best for this position and put her in that position. Then not only that happened, but ended up the boyfriend that wasn't popping the question, right? And she's like, I'm getting older, like I'm gonna have to leave him and find somebody to pop the question. Now all of a sudden he pops the question. Like we're not even working on that, and like he pops the question. Relationship with mom improved. Relationship with sister improved. Then most recently, got laid off, got let go, and of course high stress time, right? And kind of the environment right now is there's not necessarily the best job market. There's a lot of people competing for jobs, and so got her aligned in that same way to what she was looking to create, what she wanted experience of. And lo and behold, right, this past week, new job, more money than she's ever made before, still no degree, still the same place, still like making it happen again and again.
How does that make you feel?
Validated in some sort of way, like just reminder, yes, this works, it's great, it's like there's impact, more people need it.
Do you ever experience imposter syndrome in
your
work?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, the imposter syndrome big time, because it's like I work with people that make way more money than I do. So like that, it comes up then. It's like, why are they going to listen to me? Like they make more money than I do. This is why in those situations I lean more into working on the relationship thing, right? I went from not being able to make relationships work to now being in one for 12 years. So I'm like, okay, great. I lean into my strengths. So yes, imposter syndrome comes up, but I do know I can turn joy on despite what's going on. Not everybody has that skill. And so I'm like, at least I can train that. At least I can teach them how to do that sort of thing. So
Teach me right now, man. How do you train joy, dude?
Yeah.
What a great thing.
Yeah.
Give me some nuggets, man. Give me some nuggets.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing is if you have joy inside, a great way to train joy is to kind of connect to those moments where you've felt joy. And when you connect to those moments where you felt joy, like you kind of feel joy, right? Kind of start getting happy. Start feeling a little bit better.
It's funny because I'm doing it right now.
Cool.
When you just said that, I connected to this moment where I'm sitting out front on my 2 front steps last year, and my daughter just runs up to me, and she's like, "Daddy, I love you. I love you." And I can smell the air. I can see the sunbeams. I know the length of the grass, and I can hear her voice in this moment. And we can really control our emotions by bringing us back to those moments. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we're just moving so fast, and there's so many things coming at us that we forget to go into that state of bliss, into those miracle moments that can bring us out of a head funk, a fog, and right back into how we want to navigate and live life. Is there anything that comes up for you to get to that state of joy?
So there were things that I used consistently. Now I've just done it so much, I can just sort of turn it on and activate it.
He's a professional.
So
let's go.
You do enough reps, you can
You mean you have to do things over and over and put in
have to
hard
warm up,
work?
Right? Yeah, you don't have to warm up anymore. You can just spring into action. But as far as moments that, one of the moments that I've used in the past is, I used to be in the party scene, and so I would go to different events, and I just doing it for so long in Nashville. It's a small town, right? So I just remember this one moment of walking into this club, and it's just that music video moment. You walk in, everyone's turning and looking as you're coming in, and what's up? How's it going? And you're just walking past all these people and getting these hugs and greetings and all that kind of stuff. So that was a moment that I used many times in the past.
It's funny you say that because I felt the same thing before. It's almost like it doesn't happen all the time or often, but I know what you're talking about because it feels there's an overwhelm of love that you feel. And I think that love creates that moment of joy for you, and to anchor down on it or back to it, and to really have those things in your possession, in your toolkit, to be able to pull in the high stress times, the times where your world feels like it's crumbling. For me specifically, if I didn't have those anchors to lean in on, I don't know if I could navigate some of the things that have occurred in my life. Dark times come heavy in seasons and moments for me. And I think that will dissipate and I can navigate through them knowing that, the only way out is through and to get to the other side. And then for me, it's to reach out and ask for help from the people that I know love on me and will remind me of the things that I've navigated before. I think that's validation of this isn't going to kill you. It may sting, it may hurt, but there is another side, and the feeling of that other side in those tougher moments. When it comes to how you engage in relationships, not maybe with your significant other at the moment, but just business relationships, meeting people, building true human connection. How do you attack those scenarios or situations to have a depth of relationship building with others?
So one of my mantras, which I know you'll relate to because I saw you talk about it on a previous podcast, I have the thought, I have the mantra running through my head, how can I provide value? And I'm just because that, if there was a second impact moment, there was that one. It was when I was in the process of becoming a trainer. I was working these odds and end jobs, and like I was getting disgruntled, and I realized it was that same sort of disgruntled thing that had happened in previous jobs and businesses I had done, which had led to eventually the destruction of it. And I did some work around it and realized like I needed to provide value in that, even though it was not the thing I thought was my ideal job. And so when I started bringing that to that job and showing up and owning that job as if I was the owner, as if it was my business, man, everything changed in that job. And so I continually, even to this day, like I do a lot of networking, and I have a lot of business clients in general. And so it's like, how can I provide value? Like, not can they be a client, but like what can I bring to them so that their life is better? I got the training back in the day. I've always been in sales, marketing, different industries around, different businesses around those two industries. So got a lot of Zig Ziglar training, and he famously said, if you help enough people get what they want in life, you don't have to worry about that. It was real cliche to me back in the day. I didn't really get it. I got it intellectually, but there's a difference in getting it experientially versus intellectually.
Yes, dude. Oh my gosh. Like, when you start to implement, when you start to do, when you start to live it, there's so much more depth in some of those phrases or nuggets or some of those little tidbits that you like read 5 years ago or 8 years ago or 10 years ago. For me specifically, something that's coming to mind right now in this moment, I watched a podcast with Ed Milet and Brad Lee. 5 years later, I am on Brad Lee's podcast. And the podcast that I did with him was number 20 in the business category at the moment. And that's not why I'm saying this, but it was such a full circle moment for me because I heard him 5 years ago talk about how important the relationship is with yourself in order for you to show up at the highest level for others. And dude, it was like right over my head. And in that moment, I was feeling it full throttle because I started the process maybe 6 months prior to start to love myself. To look into the mirror, to navigate the hard conversations instead of running away, to have integrity of myself within my own soul. And when I started to do all that, we started to talk about it on the podcast, and I'm like, boom, like, here we are, man. Here it is. Like, and it's funny because this happens to me with a lot of books. I'll read a book. That's cute. That's cool. Intellectually, like you said, it makes sense. Yeah. I can apply it maybe to something that doesn't have a lot of depth or maturity in my life in that moment. I can relate to it. But to understand it, implement it, integrate it, and then reflect upon it, dude, it's unbelievable at the moment. It's like, whoa, where was this my whole life? My good friend Ernest Chapman, he's on the podcast. We do some work together. I was having lunch with him the other day, and we were talking about integrate. And he was like, "How do you make good into great? You integrate." And I was like, bro, that just hits in the moment, like, right? Like, I'm never going to forget that because of how I'm integrating the things that I say, how I'm showing up in this world, in my life. When I communicate on stage, I'm doing the things, I'm living the things, the stories, the frameworks, like those things are happening over and over every single day. So when I hear things around this I-5 framework that I've created, there's so much depth in it. It's so real for me. And I think that experiential application of things that we hear, and it comes back down to timing. Like how many times have you heard something or experienced something and never really integrated it or operated within it, and it didn't have much depth or it didn't mean much, but then it comes back and it appears in a different timing, a different phase, a different season of your life. You got me fired up, Ben. Yeah. You got me all jazzed up, dude. I'm all jacked up now.
One of my favorites example of that is enjoy the journey. I'm like, when I hear that, and before I integrated it, I was just like, fuck you. Like, that's terrible. Like, no, I'm not enjoying the journey. But man, like it really is. It really is about that. So to get that on another level. Yeah, there's so many little cliches or sayings like that.
The journey, I thought it was bullshit for the longest time. Enjoy the journey. Fucking journey sucks. I was creating the journey. I was creating the opinion of the journey. It was all in my mind of why it sucked. I just wanted one goal that didn't have depth: financial freedom. It wasn't about impact. It wasn't about positive influence. It wasn't about doing a podcast where people reach out to me and tell me, oh my God, thank God you had that conversation with that guest. Ben was amazing. I needed to hear that in that moment. When I started to flip the value that I was creating through the process, not only for myself financially, or for my family, but for the people that I'm impacting, that's when it finally hit for me. And funny enough, I think timing is so beautiful because I'm about to give a speech and talk about Candyland, the game Candyland, and the lessons of Candyland and how it relates to integrity. Candyland's all about the journey, man. You start here, you navigate the road, you go up, you get the colors, and then you get the cupcake card. And you go back to where the cupcake is on the board. And then you keep going. And at one point, I could be up here, my daughter could be back here, and she could get the chocolate card and go right here on Chocolate Mountain, turn the curve, and hit the candy castle. And it's like, dude, you got to enjoy getting up here. You got to enjoy getting kicked back down here, because at the end of all of it, it's just a game of life. And if you want to win life based on the values you dictate what a win is, you ultimately will. Fucking Candyland,
That's
man.
it. That's awesome. Yeah.
Enough about me, but you're pulling it out of me, Ben. You're pulling it out of me, man. You're a man of impact. You're a man of positive influence. Why are you doing this work? Why do you want to help people? Why did you join this company? Like, obviously I understand your impactful moment, but like, what's the root of you pouring into your clients, pouring into these people? Like, where does that come from?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've always been a bit of a like helper, like trying to improve. And so when you asked that question, I went back and I just kept going back and I kept thinking back, and it really comes down to this, like, I have this sense of like how things could be better and how things could improve. And I had bad tools before, and I'd give bad advice. I'd be like, oh, just think positive. And like, they're in this like really shit state. And that's like nails on a chalkboard to them at that moment, right? I come across as an asshole and not very compassionate, and nothing changes. And so once I got better tools, it was like, man, this thing that I'm good at, or I do, like, there's actually a way to do it even better. Like, that's actually impactful. That actually makes a difference. And so I do it because it's almost like there's no higher purpose as far as just helping people get what they want out of life. Like, helping people, being supportive to help them get what they want out of life. Not just a cheerleader, but like actually getting them tools and an ability to do that. Like, that's definitely rewarding in and of itself. I kind of want to get to the end of the days and be like, what difference did I make? And know that there was a difference made. Know that there's an impact that's happened. Because what else are we doing here, right? We're having an experience. We're getting to enjoy this, little third dimensional reality that we're inside of right now. But why not improve it? Why not make it nicer, better, more enjoyable for peeps?
There's definitely some mirror neurons going on here, some neurological synergy, because you just led into what the next question I was going to ask is about legacy, and you just said it. That's why you're here. For me, I always think back of the worst thing in the world is not to live up to your capacity and share the gifts, the frameworks, and the strategies with others. And I think you're living that, where you are navigating doing that, right? Like, you have these tools, You have this education. You have these experiences that are relatable. You have compassion. You have empathy. You have all these things. Why not deliver them to the people that need them most, right? And I think my question to anybody listening in the audience today is, what gifts do you have that you're not sharing with the world? What opportunities can you broker for others? What strategies have allowed you to go from A to Z, X to Y, that you have in your toolkit, you have at the disposal of your fingertips? Why are you not sharing them? Because you don't want to be on camera, because you don't want to, your voice doesn't sound good on audio, because, you're too busy making money or running a company. Like, there's people in your life right now in front of your face that need it most. And you have the talent, you have the skill, you have the opportunity. My question to you is, take it. Why are you not taking it? Ben, you are taking those opportunities. And you're doing the work, man. And I'm just so grateful to call you a friend. And I'm grateful to have you on the podcast today and spend some time with us and some of the listeners. Is there anything you want to leave the listeners before we wrap this bad boy up today?
As far as kind of what we were just speaking of, to me, that true fulfillment is living your capacity. Changing over time to be a version of yourself that you weren't before. I've just fallen in love with the process of training. I find it fascinating that you can do some things and create fundamental changes. We all are familiar with doing that with the body, like exercise, but man, we can do it with our thought strategies, our nervous system, the emotions, and then obviously our systems and processes and our impact, and we can create bigger and bigger impact. So yeah.
Man, thanks for being here today, brother. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.